what was your vision like when you started this, and how has it evolved over time?
Well, honestly, when I first started, I really had no vision. I really did it because I followed my heart and I love being around people who have intellectual and developmental disabilities. I had an amazing relationship with my aunt, Rosemary Kennedy. I just knew they had, unlimited potential and could realize their full potential when they're given the right support, encouragement, and energy. And I think, that's sort of the story of everybody's life. And I think, everybody needs a little bit of a helping hand. I've had a bunch of helping hands, and I think nobody gets to the top of the mountain on their own. And people with intellectual disabilities need sort of a little bit of a different journey, a little bit of a different strategy to get to the top. But I think whatever their dreams are, they can really be realized. And I just wanted to kind of go for it, sort of capture the spirit of young people in college, thought that they could be great friends, mentors, motivators, and at the same time, motivate college kids to be aware this population exists and they can have real impact. And it makes you feel like $1,000,000 to be involved in a life of purpose and service. And, every day you wake up and, your energy's fired up and everything's possible. And so I didn't have a strategic plan in those days. I just was always, entrepreneurial when I was a kid, always sort of hustling deals and trying to make some money in the summers and during the year and little odd jobs, and sort of brought that energy and excitement to this population and have continued to kind of grow on that. This year, we're getting close to $100 million a year in our budget, and we'll almost have 500 people working for Best Buddies in the U.S. and a couple hundred outside the U.S. So, it's gotten, reasonably large and, impacting, hundreds of thousands of people on an annual basis. So it's been fun, but, it's a grind. You got to keep hitting it and you got to keep going and waking up early and getting after it every single day. I mean, it's the only way. And, I think it's just the story of life. There's no easy way.
No, I love that perspective, right? And just something a little bit about me that you don't know, but I want to share it with you. Before I got into this and everything like that, so many, many years ago, I was a teacher, and I worked with, kids in those types of situations, intellectual and developmental disabilities. So I was in an autism unit. There was kids from very low levels all the way to very high levels of autism and physical disabled, everything. So, when you talk about that purpose and being fired up every day to make that impact, I can really relate to it because, a lot of my professional career, 10 years was working with kids in high school that had those, developmental disabilities. And it was always very inspiring because you would see different views and perspectives from these kids. And they were also very special and extremely smart, and given the opportunity to thrive in an environment, once they trust you,
Yeah.
it's beautiful, man. I just want to share that with you. So I get it.
No, good for you. Lucky you to have that experience. So you've got it, man. You already drank the Kool-Aid. So you're on the team. You know what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
lucky you, lucky me.
Yeah. Just seeing somebody that, like yourself, that has built this not nonprofit so large to impact, that demographic, I just, to me is commendable because they need it. Right. And I think that also too, it fulfills us in a certain way that we get to give back to them and learn more about them and be there through their development.
Yeah. And you say they need it. I mean, in the end of the day, honestly, we need it. And,
Hmm.
we really need it. I think people need it. And I think part of the issues go on so often in our culture today is that, people aren't in the spirit of thinking about other people first. They're always thinking about themselves. They're so self-absorbed and caught up in their own world, worrying about everything that's going on in their life. They don't, if you spend more time focusing on other people, focusing on enhancing other people's lives, making stuff happen for others, you get out of your own head, you get out of your own world, I think. And I think it's a great lesson, great value for young kids to get into the mindset, when you give, you get, when you're focusing on a purposeful life, a life that, you get so much back when you help and support a person with special needs. They're so grateful, their gratitude, their energy, their positivity, they're, they're just so happy, that if you're around that, you can't sit around all day long worrying about the news. You can't sit around all day long worrying about what Trump's going to do, what's going to happen in Iran, because, you're so caught up in just taking care of what's in front of you, taking care of how you can impact today and what you can do. And I think, it just makes you way happier and way more fired up. And, have so much gratitude, and I lead with it every day. And there's so many people that are so overwhelmed with everything that's going on in the world. And it's not that I'm oblivious to it. I just don't focus on it. And I don't, I kind of got the blinders. It's funny. I'm here in New York with my son, and I always gave him this analogy when we were kids. And when he was a kid, about the horses in Central Park, and they walk around with those blinders. And why do they do it? Because in the traffic, they don't want to get spooked from the cars. I mean, it's sort of the story of all of our lives, right? We're walking through life, and stuff's coming at us constantly, whether it's the e-bike in the bike lane, whether it's the guy on those three wheelers with the music, whether it's a taxi cab, an Uber. So much stuff is whipping by these horses. And the only way they're successful is they got those blinders on, and they're just looking straight ahead. And they're not caught up in whatever the missiles are that are coming at him. And I always used to tell him that it's so great now. He gets here and he's always pointing to the blinders. I remember, Daddy, you told me about the blinders. The blinders. I got to stay focused on my goals. Got to focus on my tennis. I got to stay focused on my grades. I got to say, I can't worry about what my friends are doing. I can't worry about they're sitting around in the pool all day long. All the things that seem like they're the easy way, but they're not, right? Because
Mhm.
everything's hard. You just got to sort of, I say to them all the time, you got to pick your hard. And if you pick a good hard thing and you love it, it's not hard. But you're still at it for hours and hours, and it still takes a lot of your time, and you're at it on the weekends. But you love it because your heart's in it and you're passionate about it, which is sort of the story for me and Best Buddies. So I'm at it all the time, but I don't really see it as a job. I see it as something that I'm passionate about and completely energizes me. And I just keep my blinders on, don't worry about what everybody else is doing, and just keep hammering, right? So the horse thing I think is great. I'm so happy my son sees it and able to share that kind of analogy with him.